this has Rangers fans absolutely fired up. We're going to get into what Matt Gilroy, former New York Ranger, had to say about the New York Rangers first-round pick, EJ Emery, from this past year's draft, and basically the massive endorsement that this young kid just got from a former Ranger. And we're going to break all of it down and what it may mean for the future of this Rangers organization. But welcome to Rangers Digest. I am your host for a short time, Gabby Gordon, covering for your main man Darius as he is currently away, so I'm covering for him in this episode of Rangers. But don't worry, he will be back very, very soon. But without further ado, let's get straight into the nitty-gritty of this, because it actually is really interesting to see what a former player had to say about this young kid. And, you know, when Matt Gilroy speaks, we listen, right? So let's take a look. First off, who is EJ Emery? Well, he was the Rangers' first-round pick in this year's draft, drafted number 30 overall, and he's really known as his defense-first type of player. He doesn't offer much offense. We'll get into what exactly specifically he can offer to the Rangers eventually down the line, but he's 18, super young, has such a career ahead of him with 16 assists in 61 games last season, and he's got a whopping plus 34. So we're going to break it down, but what I really want to break down first is the comments that were made about really how incredible this young kid is, and this is coming straight from Matt Gilroy. So this is what Gilroy had to say. He said, quote, "To be a kid at such a young age and be so driven and focused is pretty wild to see." Let's not forget here, this kid is 18, okay? He has not even gone to college yet. And the strength that Gilroy sees is really how he understands defense, which, as we know in this league, is such a hard skill to learn, and he really understands it at a high level, and a lot of scouts agree with that. We're going to get into some scouts kind of trashing him based on his one-sided type of play, but Gilroy thinks it's not really, there's really no issue here. He's going to go to a great program at North Dakota. He's going to get better, and he's really just scratching the surface of how he's going to be as a player. And Matt Gilroy ends this with, "Fans should be excited." Now, what did EJ Emery say? I may like this even more than what Matt Gilroy said. He said this. He said, quote, "My main goal, my main focus is to win a national championship and to do whatever the team needs to do that. Everyone on this team is thinking the same way, just having the mindset of getting better every day and do whatever it takes to go as far as possible." This mindset fits in perfectly with the Rangers organization and their pursuit of a Stanley Cup. So when you're putting yourself on the line to kind of help out the team, and what I think sticks out to me the most, saying that, he will do whatever the team needs to do to win. Whether that means he plays or he doesn't, I think that's really promising to see him at this young age of 18 and the future of what he might look like within a Rangers uniform and when he finally does make it to the pros. Now, there is speculation, there is some, questions about this kid and what he really can offer to this roster, and some people don't know 100% if he can. But let's just take a look at the news reports and all the things that have been said about this kid. As I mentioned, he's going to be playing his freshman season at the University of North Dakota. He's already been in summer classes, and he's not going to be rushed to the pro level, so we're not going to see him right away. He needs to mature. Defense is difficult in the NHL, as we just stated and mentioned, and Gilroy acknowledges that as well. He has to mature physically and really get into the mindset before he can become pro, and it's very far from the thought right now. As we expected, of course, this kid's not going to come in at 18 years old and rock the NHL. It's just not likely for that to happen, and it's not going to happen. So he's going to get his time in his freshman season at the University of North Dakota, and I'm sure he's going to do great things. But we will certainly follow, because this kid has potential to be a massive pro NHL player for this Rangers organization, and that is why this is a very, very important storyline here. What's also interesting, of course, is the notion here that this is what the defense currently looks like for the New York Rangers. This is the current stack up here, and of course you got Fox, you got Lindgren, who was just re-signed, Keandre Miller, you got Trouba, all these names here, if you could, and they really all follow the same scheme here. They're gritty, and they make things happen in the moment. Now, obviously, falling short within the playoffs is a different story, but honestly, with development, you could put EJ Emery in here. I think he would fit the mold. I really do. His height, he fits the mold with that, and they're all relatively young for the majority. The Rangers are still a relatively young team with a few exceptions. So, I think this is an interesting type of situation where you have a player who could really make things happen, and there's a toss-up at any cost with an 18-year-old who's coming in, and a lot of people say this was a reach for the Rangers, and maybe very well it was, but it's not going to tell a story until we get him out there on the ice in an NHL game to really see what he can do. So I keep going back to what the scouts have said. It's a little difficult to read this, so I'm just going to kind of go through it best. Just follow it the best you can here. This is 3 things that scouts have said prior to the draft, things that scouts said around this kid, right? So scout Michael Farkas, I believe that says. Sorry about that. Basically said that if he puts on his GM hat for a minute, and he needs to find a 15-point defensive D-man, he could probably do it in a trade or free agency a lot easier than finding an impact skill player on an entry-level deal. He said, absolutely no chance I'd spend a top 50 pick here. As we know, Emery was at pick 30, so according to this scout, massive reach. Same thing here. Quote, my eyes seemed to be pulled to him, to constantly seeing him turn over pucks, not a fan. That was from an NHL scout in November of 23. Quote, I think he competes and defends well, but he can't move pucks, so that keeps you out of the NHL. That's another NHL scout from December of 2023 as well. So these are 3 scouts among the many who've had rough scouting reports of this kid, EJ Emery, and what he may offer or may not offer to the table. So do what you want with this information, but the cards have been against him, and the Rangers really seem to have kind of gone against what the rest of the scouts say. The New York Rangers scouts have obviously seen something in this kid. You know, when you have a scout, pretty respected scout, saying, I'm not going to spend a top 50 pick here, and then the kid goes at 30, you know, that's pretty interesting. So they must have seen something in him. What also is interesting here is if we just look at where he ranks up in his attributes from 1 to 9, obviously 1 being like not good at all, pretty awful, 9 being the best in the business, he looks pretty average here. His top playmaker stats at the top right is that he's a play killer, he's a hammer, and he has tools in his pocket. And this is at the age of 18. I want to remind you again, he's 6'3", he's a right defenseman. At the time that this graphic was even made, he wasn't even 18 yet. He was 17, not even halfway through his 17th year, right? So he's a potential top 4 defenseman with top-end rush defense, plenty of speed, but he's got to get the puck-moving skills going. So that's obviously why they're not going to rush him to the pros right now, because as a defenseman, you can't move the puck. You know, it's not an attractive thing, but they took a chance. He's above average right now in skating. He's above average in physical. You know, the rest of his shooting, passing, and puck handling is fairly low, and that's why he doesn't offer much or any offense to this roster. He is a strict defense-only type of kid, and, you know, that could either make or break his career. He's got some shades of Brandon Carlo, but if you look at what he stacks up in this aspect of shooting, passing, puck handling, and hockey sense as a whole, this is probably what the scouts say deter you from this kid more than anything out there, and this is what has deterred many. If you look again, everything on the offensive side is fairly low in the 30s or less. His shooting, his shots, right? His shot quality, his in-slot, his out-slot, everything in regards to EJ Emery for that offensive shooting is pretty much slim to none at this point. Can that change at college, North Dakota, when they really build him up as a player? Absolutely. This kid is just tapping his potential. He's got tons more to go, and I hope he really capitalizes on it. But if you look at his transition, his defense, his takeaways, way above average in the green. Pass exits, pass entries. His pass exits are pretty much perfect. His pass entries way above average as well in the green. Those are little things that, you know, when you have those foundational skills and you really excel at them, the offense can be taught. But if he's really excelling, as it looks like in the defense, look, you got 63 for his hits, 63 again, 69 for turnovers, right? So obviously his puck battles aren't great, and the rest of his stats aren't beautiful here, but you have the quality pieces to make a very talented defender for the Rangers, and that will only help them. So obviously it's going to take some time for him to really mature into the pro level of the NHL, but when you look at the nitty-gritty and you get into beyond what the scouts have said, you can see that this kid has potential, 110% has potential in that defensive ability, and who knows, they may be able to even work on his offense as well, his puck handling, and those little things that really deterred other teams from drafting EJ Emery could very well be the golden piece for New York and taking a chance on this kid. So that is going to wrap up this video of Rangers Digest. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a video. And I don't know if I'll be back in the next one, but Darius will be back very, very soon. My name has been Gabby Gordon. This has been Rangers Digest, and I will catch you in the next one, potentially.